Welcome to the pregame show. As always, Coach Jason Buryanek. I'm Brad Seigan, filling in for Mr. Harry Schrader today as we get set for Lindenwood-Belleville. Coach, a budding rivalry. This is the first time. We're going to talk a lot about firsts. You know, we're still in the second season, a lot of firsts. We were just talking a little bit that everything we do is still the first or the longest or the most historical. You know, it's starting to get old, but it's kind of nice to say, you know, Kalen Petty is 75-yard touchdown completion, longest in team history. But this is a team that we've played before. This is the second time you've played them, and that's a first again. You know, it's the first time you already have a little history against an opponent. Last time, things didn't quite work out in the way you had hoped. Team didn't quite show up. This game probably could be a different story. How are you preparing the team for this game this weekend?
Well, we're talking a lot about what happened last year, that we felt like we had a good opportunity. It was two teams that were very similar, and especially last year where the first team that we could really felt like we could compete with. And we went into halftime down 16-10, had I believe 2 punts blocked, and we're making a lot of mistakes, yet we were only down 6 points, and then we came out second half and really just didn't do anything with it. So we've talked a lot about that with the guys that are returning, talked about it with the guys that are here now, and you know, really just built it up about that this is a rival, and you got to understand that. You've got to go in with a little bit different approach. It's got to mean a little bit more, and you know, both of us sitting with the records that we have, neither team really feels like that's where we want to be. So it's a great opportunity to show what we're about and make up a little bit from last year and see if we are taking steps forward.
Stepping back a little bit, last week, it was really a game when you watch it and you break it down, stats almost identical. You know, I think they outgained you by 1 yard. You won the time of possession battle. It comes down to really the turnover battle. What did you say? It's 27 points off turnovers?
Yeah, that was the stat that stood out. You know, we had 4 turnovers. They had 1. But the big stat is the 27-0 on the points off turnovers. We weren't able to get down in the red zone and finish and put the ball in the end zone, and that ended up hurting us as well. When I believe the final score was 41-13, when we talked to our guys that if you take 27 points off the board there, they've got 14 points. Right. And then you start looking at another situation where on 4th and 13, we should have them stopped. Our freshman corner out there just happens to lose the tackle right as the kid's going down, and he scores on that, take another 7 points off the board. So, you know, we're within a fraction, and you mentioned before we came on air about just, you know, kind of a coin flip away from things going our way, and that's exactly how we all felt. And the level of disappointment was high for everybody, our players, our coaches, just because we knew we played that first half really well. And what we challenged our offense with is obviously we can't have 4 turnovers and expect to win the game. We challenged our defense with the fact that regardless of what happens on a turnover, you can't be giving up touchdowns on that. You know, they've got to be held to field goals, got to keep them out of the end zone. There were some situations where they had the ball in field goal range, and we're going to have to settle for a field goal there, but we just can't give up touchdowns on every one of those turnovers. We've got to make a stand.
You know, one of the big plays that stuck out was really 2 plays, and it was right at the end of the second quarter. And obviously, you know the ones I'm talking about. You know, as a fan, watching it from the press box is probably not nearly as crushing as it was for you on the field. But you take away those 2 plays, it's a completely different game, and you're really in the driver's seat going into halftime with momentum. And of course, we're talking about the 2 back-to-back interceptions. Connor Bomstead ran it back 95 yards. You guys are on the goal line. And then that interception that they took 100 yards back to the end zone. How did that affect the team?
There's no question it affected them a lot. You get the one, like you mentioned, Connor intercepting it, getting it down to the 5-yard line, and then on 4th down with about 30 seconds to left, Jordan threw that interception that they returned for a touchdown and just really swung the momentum. We sat down as a staff. I'm not sure that I've ever been in a situation where you have 2 plays that were so close in proximity and how they happened that really changed the momentum. You know, you hear the expression of taking the wind out of the sails, and it's perfect for that situation. I've never been in a situation where you go to that high and that low so quickly. because it was a huge blow.
Right.
We went in at halftime, and I gathered everybody together and said, hey, we can't let one play define us. We're still in this football game. It's 20-6. We got to come out. We got to just continue to fight. That's easier said than done, and I know for myself at halftime that we were coaching our butts off with those guys, and getting their minds right and everything like that. But in the back of everybody's mind, they were thinking about that play. Coaches, myself, players. And if it's hard for us as coaches to get over, it's hard for 18, 19-year-old freshmen and sophomores to get over. And I think it affected us in the early going of the third quarter when all of a sudden we look up and we've kind of dug ourselves a hole that we couldn't get out of. We had a couple other turnovers that just continued to, I think, pile on everybody's disappointment of how the end of the first half went. Nobody was more disappointed than Jordan.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, he took it extremely hard.
Mm-hmm.
He is just such a team player, competitor. Very proud of him. He's a guy who just, stood up and said, hey, that was my mistake. I was trying to do too much and trying to make a play, but ultimately he put it on him. But it was a tough series, no doubt about it. But it's something that we've got to learn from, and it happened. We've got to realize that we can't let one play define us regardless of when it happens, where it happens. But there's no doubt it affected us.
Let's talk about some positives, though, from that game. You had a great play by your two quarterbacks, really the top offensive game that you've had in team history, in the short history, especially in the passing game. Jordan Norwine played, outside of the interceptions, a very good game. And then you get a big boost. You get a freshman come in, Jacob Hunt, and throws 8 for 15 for, I think, 139 yards. Gives your team a big lift, big 75-yard touchdown to Kalen Petty. How did that affect the team?
Well, it got him excited. I think you noticed on the sideline, and fans who were there might have saw it as well, that when Jake came in and he started moving the ball a little bit and then he hit Kalen on that touchdown, obviously that's a big moment for him, his first touchdown as a collegiate player. I think you started seeing some guys rally behind him a little bit. And I thought Jordan played a really, really strong first half. He had 2 interceptions. The one early really was not on him. We botched protection. He got hit as he threw. The second one obviously was hurtful. I believe at that time Jordan just started pressing a little bit too much. Jake came in. I thought he showed a lot of poise. Did some really good things, managed the offense pretty well. So he'll get the start this week, and I'm anxious to see what he does.
Turning our focus to the game today, Lindenwood Belleville in the house. First time they're playing here. Last year, we were over at the Candy Stripe in Belleville. A little different environment there, but get them at home field today. Jacob Hunt, as you said, gets the start. Going to be an interesting battle, I would think, as far as these two teams, because they're kind of a coin flip on what team is going to show up on both sides. Yeah. We have a young team. They have a more experienced team, but really similar paths in their season. Not similar styles of play, but similar paths. How do you get the right team to show up for Missouri Baptist?
That's the thing that we're all trying to scratch our heads and figure out how we do that. We keep encouraging them week in and week out. We're starting to have some leadership step up. Every week that passes, you have a new guy that starts stepping up and really showing some good leadership. But that's the question. When you're dealing with so many young players like we are, and early in the week, I think it was Monday, when I was talking to the team, I said, all freshmen and sophomores stand up. And there was probably 75 guys that stood up. I believe there was maybe 12 guys that were still seated that were juniors. We don't have any seniors right now. So that kind of, you started looking around the room, and as they kind of looked around and noticed how many guys were actually standing up, you could see guys start smiling, and I kind of had a flashback to the movie Hoosiers, when when they pull out the tape measure and they measure the hoop and they say, oh, it's 10 feet, and you kind of realize, the guys realize, hey, it's no different, I think there was some excitement that, hey, we're young. If we stick together, we can really do some good things. So that's what we got to keep preaching to them, continue to coach them and teach them how what it means to work hard on a daily basis, what it means to be successful at this level. And we're starting to get there. We're not there yet, so I think it's always a question of which team is going to show up, but I'm anxious to see. That's always kind of the fun part, is if the team that showed up last week, that showed up at Siena Heights is there, then I believe Lindenwood's going to have a fight on their hands, and we're going to give them a game.
today with Lindenwood, really their offense kind of lives and dies with Cam Harris. He gave us fits last time, 169 yards on the ground a season ago. He's already got 200-yard games this season. How do you stop Cam?
We got to run to the football, and we've got to tackle, and that's something that we have emphasized a lot. Ever since that first week, we didn't come in good enough shape. We didn't come in as good enough tacklers. That falls 100% on me. And after that week, we had that bye week. We've really focused on running the ball, focused a lot on being a better tackling team. I think it's shown up a lot. We haven't had near the missed tackles that we did in week 1. So we've got to run to the football, and we've got to tackle Cam. But he's a tough runner. We may not have one person just drag him down every time. Most of the time, it's going to take 2 or 3 guys. So the one thing that I hear in the defensive meetings is they tell them, hey, if you can wrap up, the cavalry's coming, and we've shown that on film. So that's how we've got to attack him. We've got to make sure that we're fitting in the right spot in the run game. We spend every single day on that, whether it's this week or any week. That's something we emphasize a lot, is we need to stop the run, and that's got to be our number one goal. So I think we are much better at stopping the run here in the last couple of weeks. And to be honest with you, when we're playing guys that we can physically match up against on the defensive line, we do a pretty good job at stopping the run. Marion gives us some problems because of their size, but I thought Taylor had some really big offensive linemen. We used our speed really well against them, and we're able to hold them to 109 yards rushing, and that was well below their season average.
New head coach over at Lindenwood Belleville this year, Dale Carlson, comes in. He is now taking over for Jeff Fisher, who was there for the last 3, I believe, years. What do you know about Coach Carlson? What does he like to do?
I don't know a ton about him. From what I understand, he was at Ohio Dominican. I think he helped start that program. And when I was at McKendree, we were out there playing Ohio Dominican for their home opener in their first season. That was a very tough team, and he built that program into a very consistent, very competitive team in a short time. Then he went to North Park. So I don't know a ton about him outside of that, but it seems like his guys play hard. It seems like the team plays hard. They wanna run the football. We know that. They've got a really talented quarterback that they like to throw the ball with. They try to be as balanced as possible, which statistically they are pretty good about that. But they want to give the ball to number 22. There's no doubt about it. He's a tough runner. And if Cam was over here, we'd want to do the same thing. So, but they play sound football. They get after you. They play with a lot of emotion. That's the thing we've been talking to our guys about is they're going to take the field like they're the University of Florida. And it's up to us to make sure that we match that enthusiasm, and then we play with a lot of effort and execution like we talked about last week.
Kickoff coming up in just a few minutes. Glad you're here with us on the Spartan Digital Network. Kevin Paulus, Todd Schumacher will be there for you with the play-by-play and the analysis. We'll be back here in just a moment. Thanks for joining us on the Spartan Digital Network.